The Alfie Whattam podcast.
Hey, this podcast is brought to you by WeLoveAlpha.com. If you're looking to grow and hire and scale your software engineering team in the UK, then go to WeLoveAlpha.com to hire the best software developers on the market. Everything across Java to C# to PHP to Python to React and Angular and mobile and more. Go to WeLoveAlpha.com to hire the best software engineers in the UK now. So welcome back to 102 of the Alfie Whattam podcast. I've got James in the studio today. James, thanks for joining. Give us a bit of an intro, mate. Who are you? What's Zero Gravity?
Sure.
What's the story?
Sure. So I'm James, CTO of Zero Gravity. My background has been in technology. I've been in it sort of depressingly for 10 years now. Started as a software engineer, worked in all sorts of different verticals. Realized quite early on, I think I liked the concept more of helping to run tech companies than I did being as part of an engineer, but that's my skill set. I studied computer science, I very much consider myself still an engineer.
Yep.
Came out of a startup here in London called Toshi, which I helped grow to a good size, had like a corporate buyout there.
Sure.
Then was going to start my own startup in music, actually, as part of Entrepreneur First.
Yep.
And met with Joe, the founder of Zero Gravity, who was looking for a technical person to help scale.
Was he also in the
his
boot
idea.
camp?
No, he wasn't actually. So I was the reason how we met was I got accepted into Entrepreneur First and the way their model works is they look for CTOs and CEOs and they try to pair them together.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I was looking for a business oriented person.
Sure. Yeah.
I kind of think I straddle both anyway. I'm probably not the most technical CTO, but I'm quite business minded, quite commercial, I think, in how I think.
Yeah.
But I was looking for somebody who would have like good gravitas, just kind of like, augment the skill set that I had.
Yeah.
And I was looking on Angel List for people, right? People who were looking for jobs. And then I actually saw that Joe was advertising for this CTO role, right?
Cool.
It was super early. It was basically a year on from what I was trying to do.
Yeah, yeah.
I and ahed over it, and it was a bit of a difficult decision. I actually ran off to Mexico for 2 months to think it over, basically.
Yeah.
But I joined Zero Gravity for a few reasons. Principally, I think the mission, which is to accelerate people's personal development journeys into university and into careers.
Yeah.
Essentially, what we do is we mentor disadvantaged students, currently in the UK only, but the goal is worldwide, into university, into careers, and what we call into life. So the way that we do that is through a digital platform. So we believe the model of mentorship really works, and we've got provable data that it works.
Sure.
But we provide a kind of a whole content platform around that.
Yeah.
And we really make a difference, right? So our current stats are, depending on what university you look at, we at least 2x your chance of getting into university, and that's the most competitive university. So if you take a look at Oxford and Cambridge, which I think is traditionally about a 20% acceptance rate, that goes up to 40%, which is quite an uplift.
That's pretty good.
By going through our platform. We've been doing that now for, the business has been doing it for about 3 years. For me, it's 2 years. It's now the second year that we're doing that. And in October, we launched our careers product, which is the same model. So it's mentorship into early careers. We realized that there's a big gap where a lot of people go to university, right? And, a lot of other companies are trying to solve this in other ways. Multiverse, namely with the apprenticeships.
Absolutely. They're massive on LinkedIn and whatnot.
Absolutely, right? So, and their model is that, the university system is not a requirement.
Sure.
Like, I don't disagree with that, but we're there for people who do want to go to university.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, they have the same problem, which is that they come out of university and they've got to get a job, right? Unless they want to be an academic. Yeah. And the way that you do that is by getting work experience, right? Yeah. For people who are, have a familial connection, they can often hook them up with internships, things like that. Sure. We're there for the kind of every man who does not have that, and we provide that. So the corporates basically pay us, and that's our business model to run careers accelerators programs. And it's been a big success. So we've got big names on there at the moment: HSBC, KPMG. We're looking at kind of a few big law firms coming on in the near term. We're moving into tech as well. That's an area that we're looking at, as I'm sure you know. Tech recruitment's a big problem.
Yes.
So essentially that's what it is. We're a digital platform that puts people into university and into early careers.
It's a good mission. I love the name, Zero Gravity.
Yeah. So yeah, the name Joe is the brand aficionado actually, but the concept behind it is, you know, zero gravity is nothing's holding me back.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Like, you know, we take the kind of the best of the British state school system, right? Which is like we actually have an algorithm. So when you sign up, we contextualize your background. So we look at your grades, we look at your school, we look at your socioeconomic background. We kind of have these data sets. We contextualize you against those things, and we identify those that have the highest potential, right? The point being that, you know, if I'm James from Surrey and I go to Eton and I've got 3 A stars at A level and I want to go to Imperial, let's say, sure, that's great, and I'll get an offer, right? Of course I will. I've had great schooling. I've had all opportunities given to me, right? Actually, there's John over in Sunderland, and he's got, you know, AAB, okay, but he's gone to, you know, the worst college in Sunderland, right? Yeah. Who's the more interesting candidate right there?
Well,
like
for me, the latter, but you know, subjective. But yeah, I'd say chap from Sunderland.
Right. So, and I think like, and that's sort of the point I should make is that we're not there. You know, when you talk about these kind of like state versus private and all this kind of stuff, you tread a delicate balance between saying that you know you're out to get people. That's not true. We what we want to do is just highlight that those people are at the very least equal. Like there is an enormous difference, and I think people are understanding that the background has an enormous impact on future outcomes. Yeah. We are trying to solve that problem with technology to identify those that, yes, on paper, you would look at and you'd go, okay, they don't have the school, they don't have the credentials that's good as this other person, but actually, based on what they've gone through, you know, that they're a really interesting person. Their potential is really high. Yeah. Employers are starting to see this, which is good, which is why this business is also really timely. And I you know, I want to call it a business because this type of issue gets conflated too much with kind of charity and charitable giving. Like, we're very passionate saying these people are not charity cases, right? Yeah. They're often picked up by those kind of institutions, and it's kind of like, oh, poor you know, so on and so on. They don't want that, like, and so much so actually it's really hard to get some of their brand stories, like, and their like personal development stories, because they do not want to draw attention. Private people, and I respect that. I'd be the same. So instead, we focus on highlighting their strengths and putting them on a level playing field to everybody else, which you know, coming from the Midlands and stuff, where it's not a particularly wealthy area where I come from, is noticeable in people that I went to school with. It's noticeable in when I go back home compared to the southeast here. So I really resonated with it when I heard all about it, and I decided to not do Entrepreneur First. Abandoned my own idea, which was really hard because I was in the right space mentally, and I was in the right space kind of in the time of my life. I'd say I was kind of in between. I was a free agent, so to say, and I partnered with Joe, but it's going really well. So we've done our seed round last December, so we're a year and a bit into seed. We raised £3.5 million. We're now undergoing our Series A. So we're going to scale up quite a bit. We think at least to about 50 staff. We believe we've captured at the moment about 10% of the total UK student population that's identified as disadvantaged. So, and we're growing at least 100% year on year. So scaling up, Series A is going to be a task. In that, look to expand out the careers, look to internationalize the product, all those kind of fun challenges.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing the story, because it's such an interesting type of company. You know, it's not a bank, it's not an insurance platform. It's something that's doing good in the world. So appreciate entrepreneurs and leaders that are going on that direction. And given your technical background, very keen to explore a couple of tech stories, pieces of news with you, and get your perspective, your insights, and your point of view on kind of what's happening in the world. So first thing I wanted to delve into is Mr. Musk's Neuralink has been in the news quite a bit recently for a variety of reasons, but the essence of what they're trying to do is really quite groundbreaking if you look at it from kind of a first principles perspective. Let me just show a quick clip of this is a couple of years old now, but if you're listening on audio, now's a good time to turn on the video as well. But essentially, this is a monkey. I believe is the right word. And it's got a tube there which has got a banana smoothie going through it. And with his hand, he's moving a Joy-Con to move on the screen a little white circle to move it to the orange cube. The interesting thing, and he's doing that through his hand, just as a human would do, then they disconnect the Joy-Con. So he's doing it, but how is the white circle moving? Well, it's moving by the Neuralink, so by a chip in the brain of the chimp, measuring the electrical signals and whatnot. I won't go into the tech and the science or pretend to understand it, but there it is showing on the screen what it looks like. He's playing Pong using his mind. There's no hand moving at that point. It's literally just thinking up, thinking down, and Pong is being played, the first ever video game. Crazy.
Wild.
What do you think when you see that, James?
The first thing that I think, like the first emotion that comes to mind is excitement, actually.
Yeah.
So I love that kind of thing, right? I've actually said in the office, it was weird because I had this discussion the other day. I said, kind of, what's the right word? Bio-augmentation, biotechnology,
biohacking, cyberpunk sort of thing.
If something came to the market that had, strong research, I would definitely augment myself.
Me too. Sign me up.
100%, right? So, but dangerous at the same time. Like I love media around this. Probably the best portrayal that I've seen recently is the cyberpunk game that came out.
Great game.
Great game. Played through it, but a lot of the themes are really genuinely interesting in that, right? So I know it's based on the works of, I can't remember the writer actually who wrote the books, but I think that's right. This could be dangerous, and in that kind of world of companies, mega corporations, having access to data, that is goes down to the biological level. That is dangerous, right? We've already seen what can happen to organizations that have social data. Take a look at any of the kind of current issues in social media, and look at, we were just discussing before, right, around things like TikTok being, having strong ties with, the Chinese state. So people get freaked out by that. So although the technology in isolation is super cool, we have to be careful, right? Who's going to own it? What's it going to be used for? There's an ethics question that I think.
Can it be hacked?
Yeah. Right. Who's got access to their data? What can they use it for? Basically, in my opinion, yes, it could be hacked, right? It would probably.
Of course it can. Everything can be hacked. We saw LastPass, which is meant to be a secure password vault manager, just got hacked recently.
Yeah, I got that. Got that email.
Switched everything over.
Thanks
quickly.
very much, LastPass. So. Look, I'd still augment myself, right? I think personally, I want my eyes to be better. So my eyes are not the best. So that's what I would quite like. If there's some sort of neural optic link, sign me up, right? But all sorts of things, if you could extend your lifespan by this, I think that would be awesome. I think there's a question of how far do you go with that? I'm not sure, but if you can replace broken parts, why wouldn't you do that? There's so many illnesses that are uncurable right now.
Sure.
That if you could replace that with some form of machine, or you could regulate it, that's surely the benefits outweigh the cons, I think. But knowing the way the world goes.
But it depends, because there's going to be situations where some of these go wrong, and people just get fried or whatever. And maybe you don't want to be the first early adopter with this sort of tech. Maybe you want to wait till version 3 or 4 comes out, perhaps. But I'm like you. I'm like, sign me up. Give me the robot arm. Give me the mechanical legs. Let's go for it. Elon thinks that we'll be able to use Neuralink in a number of different applications. He says the first kind of main usage will be very soon. People will be able to use a smartphone who are disabled, who can't touch the screen, faster than somebody with thumbs and working fingers and that sort of thing. Do you see that being a revolutionary use case, perhaps?
Yeah, like I think any technology that solves a core problem, right? And I'm sure if you are physically disabled in a way that you cannot interface with technology, right? And I know this is a consideration for all web developers really these days, the kind of accessibility and stuff. Like building technology to support the, frankly, quite basic tools that we have right now to help those people is quite hard. I think if you can kind of almost remove the kind of patch around it and actually solve the problem at its core, which is like, okay, if you can't use your hands, let's say, and you just interface with it directly through your mind or, you know, through where you're looking at, like that's a revolution. So yeah, I think if you can make it reality, that's only a great thing. I can't see in that isolated case the downside, right? It's just goes back to that core question as always, which is, okay, who's using the data and what's the purpose there?
The $1 trillion question, right? Where this next step goes is he believes that you'll be able to send thoughts to each other. Maybe that's why he bought Twitter, because you can think tweet and you can think, you know, send to that person or just think publicly or whatever.
That's very concerning.
Maybe. But that could replace verbal communication. We're already pretty introverted and people living in VR and whatnot. Do you think sending thoughts to each other would be a good thing, innovation, or something crazy and perhaps, you know, going too far?
Good question. Because
I don't know the answer to it.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I'm not sure. So if I take like the example of sharing thoughts publicly, we have those platforms in the form of social media like Twitter, right? Like, frankly, people share sometimes too much publicly.
Overshare.
Right? They overshare or they share something that's actually not cool, and people get rightly upset, sometimes wrongly upset, in my opinion, as well. In terms of like one-to-one thought sharing, I don't see the great innovation there. Like, if I want to text my girlfriend something, I text my girlfriend something, right? She reads that. It's a private conversation. Like, it depends on how the technology would work, but almost if I'm kind of sat there with this Neuralink chip and then I kind of get some brainwave flying in through my ears or whatever, and I go, okay, my girlfriend says she's hungry. Like, shall we go out for dinner or something, and like I fancy pizza. Amazing, but potentially disruptive at the same time. Like, I suppose it depends on what the technology is. Like, I don't know. I personally don't see, and I always think about this with kind of technology innovations, which is I don't feel the need right now to want to share in a better way people's thoughts. But maybe I'm missing the point, right? Like, I'd maybe need to see some of the use cases that he's pitching.
Well, we went from people, you know, if we're talking about sending information and ideas, it was, you know, stone tablets to carrier pigeons to letters to the internet and social media, and now voice with Siri and Alexa, and perhaps thought is the final frontier. Maybe, but yeah, I mean, it's so far away from anything that we've got right now that it's like, should we go there? I think if the innovation continues to happen, though, and the tech is plausible, then it will catch on. It will happen, because you'll be at a disadvantage if you're not adopting. Like, if you've got two people interviewing for a job, one of them has got a Neuralink and they can access Wikipedia and ChatGPT and it's all in their mind, and the other person doesn't, then evolutionary, that person will be
better.
Yeah.
I fundamentally, I do believe that this kind of step with, you know, is the next step in human evolution, right? Like, our technology is advancing at a faster rate than, you know, biology can catch up with, right? So it's only natural that, in my opinion, that in order to actually use some of this technology that we're developing at such a pace, that we have to change our bodies, because it's not happening fast enough, right? So I think, yes, is it the last frontier? Probably. The more I think about it, actually, when you were speaking just then, I was thinking, okay, actually, when I think of thoughts, I was thinking it more as kind of like exactly what people are like sharing their thoughts in the form of social media. But the more I think about it, I'm thinking about kind of emotional sentiment to a scenario, and being able to just know that if you're, I don't know, imagine you were speaking to somebody and humans right now work off the basis of body language and sort of gesturing and facial expressions. Like, what if you just knew that person was sad or you annoyed them with what you said, right? Like, certainly that would be helpful for me.
Be helpful with your girlfriend, perhaps. Be helpful with my wife. Absolutely. I could just have a color coding system. Green is good to speak to her, and red is, back the fuck away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So when's that coming to market, please? That would be great.
Come on, Elon. Let's speed it up. Okay. Next clip, the world of drones is getting more and more and more advanced, and it's starting to bleed into other cutting-edge areas, virtual reality in this case. So this is a drone which gives you a VR headset with a first-person view. Okay.
Awesome.
So once again, if you're listening to audio, turn on the video, please. You can strap on a VR-type headset and take off on a drone and see what the drone is seeing. So this, many people are claiming is the next step in kind of drone technology, being able to be everywhere from your living room. And the drones are just getting so good. Like when I was a kid, you would smash into a wall when you try and fly it. Now look at this thing; it can go perfectly through a window, which might be a bit creepy actually. Fly through someone's house and fly out the other side of the window. So it's crazy to see how cheap these are getting, how fast they're getting. I mean, how unrecognizable they're getting in the respects that, like with the Chinese spy balloon and stuff the other day, like are we looking at drones? We don't even know what a lot of these are in a lot of situations. So, but when you see that clip, when you see where drones are heading, what are your thoughts on that, James?
It's the same thing with all new technology, right? Same as Neuralink, right? Is awesome. Like I just love innovation, right? Like there's always a pessimistic angle in me, which is almost a shame these days that I go, okay, how are the big corporates going to,
monetize
fuck this
them.
up? How are they going to ruin the fun for everyone? Okay. But the technology in of itself is super cool. When I was probably about 5 in the late 90s, I think I got like an RC plane that was made of foam. And I used to fly it around this field.
I remember those.
You probably know, like they were big back then. And they were terrible, to be honest. Like when I was 5, and that kind of thing is probably what I was.
That's what you wanted.
That's what I wanted, right? I didn't know it existed or it would exist in my lifetime potentially, but that's what I wanted. I think I've flown some drones actually. So my brother does a lot of media stuff, and he uses drones a lot in his filming, and they're awesome. Like from a consumer tech perspective, I think that's amazing, right? And if you wanted to, like, I don't know, imagine you went on holiday somewhere and you took a boat out on the coast or something, you want to just get some really nice stuff, like, why wouldn't you do that?
That'd be amazing.
It's great fun. But, and I'm going to always draw the pessimistic angle, okay, sure. You only have to look at the reports of what's happening, in Ukraine at the moment to see that drone technology has become like a mainstream part of warfare right now, right? And this is an innovation that I think both sides of that conflict have actually struggled to address, because they haven't. It's the first time. So with all things of tech, like the better these things become, the opportunity for harm also gets greater, right? So I think with all ways, we've got to protect ourselves as a society, which is like, okay, this is like stuff that probably the military had, like in terms of, actual functionality, being able to kind of first person pilot some kind of thing, right, for a long time. Like, can this be used for harm on a consumer level? I think theoretically, yes, but like we haven't seen any, I can't think of any news stories recently that would go beyond like nuisance.
Not really. I mean, you raise good points. There's good and the bad. So if we look at the good to begin with, right? Yeah. Do you think it's possible in a couple of years we have these flying around delivering Amazon packages, pizzas? Yeah. Do you think that's a real possibility, that something that could happen in the next couple of years?
Yes, and actually in my hometown you can actually get not from a flying drone, but from a land-based drone, you can get your, I think it's Amazon do it. So I've seen it, and it's super cool. So yes, I think that is a reality that would happen. Yeah,
I've talked about it on the show. There are companies doing trials and that sort of thing. Obviously, we look out the window, we don't see them yet. But in our lifetime, I think it's very possible that we will have them, automated self-driving drones flying everywhere.
For sure.
It's going to cause problems. They're going to crash. They're going to hit people. But that's happening with planes, with birds anyway at the moment. So, I mean, okay, bad side, stalking, illegal spying. You could strap a bomb on one of these things.
Yeah, you could. And they are.
Use Face ID.
Yeah.
Go, I want to find James.
Yeah.
There's loads of pictures of you online. It will find you, and it could just drive into you. That could be done perhaps less so on the likes of me or you, but if we had someone like Elon Musk or Richard Branson or someone high profile, a politician perhaps.
Right.
How do you stop that if you've got hundreds of these flying in when they're doing a speech?
That's the question, right? And it's like, I feel like almost you've asked me 2 questions and I've gone, oh, be careful, right? Like,
and what happens when they get smaller as well? Because all tech gets smaller. You said you had the plane; it was huge, right?
Yeah, it was big.
What happens when these are the size of an insect?
Yeah, spying. You know, it's worrying. Okay, like I don't know. Like, are you gonna have like in your house, like anti-drone technology that you're gonna put
maybe
on the outside of your front door? It's a possibility. I know. I don't know how companies are defending against this, right? I don't know how. Where these things are a big problem, like actually what people are doing. And I think the answer is probably not a lot. So, but equally, I also say that generally people are good. Like, although something theoretically can be bad, and I always, when I think about new technology, I go, okay, we should answer the ethical question. I do also see the good in humanity, and I think most of the time when new technology comes to light and new innovations happen, it is for a very good reason. So I am optimistic that we would get over those problems, even though if I don't have an exact answer as to what the solution would be. And maybe it's just an awareness thing, right? Maybe just people accept that, like in the modern world where people are now slightly more apprehensive about putting in their login information in certain websites, that people are more apprehensive about kind of how they act out and about, in knowing that they could be under some form of surveillance. Like, although that sounds weird to say, but maybe that's just the way the world will go, and that's just
privacy will be a thing of the past,
right?
Won't it? I mean, there'll have to be some regulation around this to kind of make sure that what we're describing doesn't become a daily thing. But will be interesting to see where it all goes. But something else in the VR world is VR's been under a lot of complaints because there's no legs. It's all like you know the head and the torso. So we finally got a solution to this with the next clip, which is essentially full body VR tracking. So it's these little sensors that you can stick onto different parts of your body. There were ways to do this which were very expensive. This is kind of making it available for everybody, and then boom, you can turn into your character. This is a super cheesy commercial. I don't think I've ever danced like that, but you can now have the movement in VR that you'd have in the real world, which a lot of people are saying is kind of a huge leap for virtual reality, given the complaints that Mark had, that Meta had because of that sort of thing. When you see where that clip and where VR could be heading, what's your take on that?
Well, so certainly all the big companies are betting that VR is the future, right? I'm on the. I don't doubt it will be. I think we haven't had the killer app or the not. Killer. What is the thing that brings it into the future?
When it replaces your phone, I think. Yeah, because at the moment it's a clunky box that you stick on your head with an Oculus. I mean, Apple was going to release theirs and hopefully make an announcement in a couple of months. When Apple do something, they do it usually pretty well. But
I'm waiting for that.
Yeah, but when you have like this, like a pair of glasses, or something a little bit chunkier, when you don't need your phone, that's the killer app in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. To be fair, I haven't played around with the latest version of what Oculus have done. I think my friend at university had an Oculus Rift, which we played
the early ones.
A shitloads of. Great fun, okay, but like video games, to be honest, I didn't like do any kind of like metaverse stuff on it. We played like like, I can't remember the names of the titles actually. We played a lot of video games and I really liked it. I was super motion sick when I first started using it though.
Me too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really bad.
Yeah.
It took, and I was like, oh shit, maybe I can't use this. And I was gutted. Two computer science students not being able to use, one of them not being able to use VR would be devastating, but I got over it.
It's got to push through. The more you do it, the less you get.
Yeah,
Sounds weird, but
exactly. But for sure, like all those games, they what I noticed was that they have to get around the movement aspect, and the way they did it was, you know, by kind of like that was part of the controls of the joysticks, right? If you can map like beyond the hands, that surely opens up a whole new level of immersion that you didn't have before, which is also part of the issue with VR is that visually it is very immersive, and you kind of come out of it and you're like, whoa, okay, I've been in the Matrix. But it's not perfect, right? Like for me, the true metaverse, like this kind of concept that we would like, you know, get home from work, plug in at 7 p.m. and, you know, sit on a beach in Hawaii and really feel like you're there. You have to solve some of those immersion challenges, which surely comes from like limb control.
Yeah. Do you think we'll get to that point where the graphics keep getting better and better and better, and virtual reality is indistinguishable from real life? Do you think we'll get to that point?
Yes, I think yes, definitely. So on like graphics technology, for sure. Like frankly the companies that make like consumer grade graphics technology, they kind of limit it for. They limit where they're at in terms of the products they release to market. So it's further along theoretically than where, you know, consumer wise you can actually get stuff. The other thing with kind of graphics and thinking, you know, making things immersive is typically around like animation quality. So you'll see like, you know, again, let's take things we talk about graphics, video games. Like the reason that AAA video games often look the best graphically is not so much about the kind of fidelity, is it's also about how talented those animators are at making facial expressions look good. They use super high mocap. So if you are not animating those things and they are genuine representations of human behavior, then I can see that being immersive.
Hello, super quick video just to say I would love to give you a free copy of my new report, How to Hire Top Software Engineers. So my team has surveyed almost 5,000 software engineers across the United Kingdom, and their responses reveal simple steps which you can take to hire the best software developers on the market. This report is essential reading for all technology leaders across the UK. Just scan the QR code on the screen to download your free copy now, or go to welovaalpha.com/hiring insights to download your free PDF.
What about we talked about the downsides of a lot of this cutting edge technology. A lot of people say VR makes kids socially awkward, super introverted. I've got, you know, younger cousins and that sort of thing, and they even though we're not that far apart age-wise, because kids are growing up in VR, maybe it's not giving them the personality and the people skills and the communication that they should have, in my opinion. Do you think there's an argument to be made there?
Yeah. So I think I do think there's an argument to be made there. I think, like, generally speaking, an always digital presence is not the healthiest way to be. I think you need to mix those things. But equally, I don't subscribe to the idea that digital is bad. Like, you can foster genuine friendship, team bonding online. You only have to look at like any community of like kind of online game. Again, I feel like I talk a lot about video games, but you know, to realize that like you can have a lot of camaraderie and like all the kind of like, you know, face-to-face interactions can happen online. With that said, like, we are animals, and we are group animals, and I think you can't fully replace, you know, being in the same room physically. And if anything, I would say that like COVID, work from home all of the time, emphasized that fact, and actually almost made me more convinced that yes, that VR, metaverse, like, it has a place, and it will revolutionize a lot of things. Like, if you could do meetings fully, you know, immersive, that will make those hybrid meetings so much better.
Yes.
But equally it's nice to just get in a room with people and see them face to face. I don't see us replacing that anytime soon.
No, it's probably more balance, right? I started doing the podcast on webcam, and when I moved into a studio, it's just so much better. The conversations are more natural. There's no you're on mute sort of situations, all of that jazz. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it probably will get to a point where it gets just as good as real life graphics in terms of motion, in terms of everything else, but it won't be as good as real life because it's not real life. And it's hard to connect with somebody emotionally looking at a digital avatar.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. Especially if they're like an anime character, right? That's where personally for me, personally for me, that's like, but just because I'm not into that kind of thing, like that doesn't make me want to engage with it. Like I would be much more interested in a more realistic impression of somebody, like the whole like VR chat type thing where people are avatars. I get like there's an anonymity level, which is cool, but like a real person for me, like proper representation of a real human would be a big next step. Like I know I saw Facebook's, I can't remember what their product's called.
Horizon Worlds?
Yes, where I think, and Zuckerberg himself had that avatar. I'm sorry, it looked really
in Paris with the Eiffel Tower.
Oh my God. Really bad.
We show that picture on the screen in editing. It's not great. But the Apple, this is just rumors, but the Apple mixed reality headset is rumored to map your face and show a very realistic version of you. So that very much is definitely a big step forward if that happens.
Like I said before, right? Like fidelity, there's as much about fidelity and like realizing the world as there is in the quality, of the kind of the animation, the representation of true human emotion and true human interaction. Yeah. Mapping your face. Accurately. Yeah. Great next step. For sure would increase the emotion. Definitely.
Moving away from VR, 3D printing has kind of been exploding in the news recently. Somebody tweeted this clip to me. If you have clips you want me to have a look at, feel free to send them on Twitter. The handle will be on the screen. People are starting to use 3D printing to print houses and potentially cities. Show you a quick 30-second clip of this at the moment. So the concept basically is it can replace the typical construction being involved. You can download a house from an architect, presumably, press a button, and then boom, it starts printing out the house. You could have multiple copies of that. I think Elon Musk was living in a 3D printed box house for a while. I'm not sure if it's still there. Definitely very Elon. But there it is with the paste, with the material, building this concept, this structure. And people are saying, in theory, this could revolutionize the world. You could build in perhaps third world countries where you need, low-cost housing. You could, get millions of these out, and there are many other applications as well. But when you see where 3D printing is heading, where that type of tech could be used in the applications, James, what's your point of view?
So I'm going to touch on that point first around the housing element. So this is a systemic issue, certainly in the West, that young people are facing, right? Okay, so I recently got on the ladder myself. I bought a flat in London.
Hey, me too.
Hooray, there you go. Yeah, we did it, right? Yeah, it's taken me 10 years.
Yeah.
Like genuinely, right?
London's expensive.
Okay, London is insane. I don't live that centrally. Like I live in a 1-bedroom apartment. In my opinion, my requirements were very normal. Sure. I don't live beyond my means, right? But the fact that very few select people can own their own home or have access to affordable rents, for me is a crisis, right? And so much so that I've actually said in the office that businesses that are looking to solve that, I would definitely like to back myself. So, but is the problem in that the building? Frankly, what I've seen is it's not the building. So if I'm not from London Southeast, like land purchase and property purchase back in the Midlands is a lot cheaper, right? And and actually it's often the land that's the most expensive part.
Sure. Yeah.
And the building is not as bad. Like I feel like if everyone had the land access, actually most people could probably afford to employ the builders to build it. Sure. Probably, like off the top of my head. Certainly in the West, right? In developing countries, it's probably a much bigger challenge, right?
Course,
Where,
yeah.
if you take a look at, I don't know, I'm going to pick, like the favelas of Rio de Janeiro, right? Like where those things are made of all sorts of materials, right?
And like shanty little
exactly,
houses.
and like access to material and like well constructed buildings is a problem. But does that actually come back to the land question? I'm not sure. So I think that's a great innovation on the kind of the 3D printing. Like if you can 3D print a house, fantastic. On like housing in general, and I realize that's not exactly the topic we're talking about, I feel like there's a more systemic question, which is land grab by, corporations, and then also the fact that there just isn't enough of it.
Absolutely, it's limited, right?
Right.
The scarcity in that, absolutely, and where there's scarcity, there will always be an area where the prices are much higher, and vice versa. So I didn't think about that. That's a good point. What about in terms of where this tech could go?
Yeah.
Do you see a future perhaps where we have 10, 20 years 3D printed skyscrapers, shopping malls, hospitals? Do you think that's a reality?
Yeah. Why not? Like, I think if you can build the infrastructure to support it, and it's more cost effective than current manufacturing methods. I think the market will always adapt to that kind of thing, like kind of like prefab houses and stuff. I don't. This is really an area I don't know a lot of, is construction and building. But as far as I understand how houses are built now compared to how they used to build, it's like a lot of it is like you can get prefab stuff, right, which is kind of an evolution of where it was. This seems like one step further. So yes, I see that in terms of like being able to 3D print stuff in your own home just to fix things or have small things. Like that's a reality now. Like as far as I understand, like 3D printing equipment is not that expensive. I've used it a few times at university because we had one in the lab. I haven't owned one myself, but the barrier to entry is not that high.
It's
I don't think.
And there's a big problem in the States with people printing ghost guns.
Yeah.
Because you can do that. I mean, you can download the recipe, whatever you'd call it, and then boom,
blueprint, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a concern, of course, right? Like with all things, but equally, like if you take the US, like in many states, you can go out and just buy a gun.
Yeah,
right. So if you're a nefarious guy, like I get that there's that there's tracking and licensing and so on and so on. But like let's take the UK with really strict firearms laws. Like sure, you can theoretically print a gun, but then you've got to somehow find ammunition for that gun. Also, like you can just go into a shop and buy a knife or something. If you're a bad guy, it's like if you're a bad guy, like why would you go to all that effort? It's kind of like what I was saying before, which is theoretically, can be used for bad things, right? Of course it can. Generally, though, I think most people are going to be like, oh, that bit of plastic on my remote control for my TV's snapped.
It's probably the main use case, isn't it?
I want to replace it because I can't buy that spare part. But I think the tech's super cool, right? I think the tech's super cool. I think haven't seen mass adoption from a consumer level. Like, I don't know anyone with one in their house, actually.
I know a couple of people, but, I mean, it's such a weird world where it's not like the normal area where people would be in. So where I see this potentially being really, really interesting is when we start to colonize Mars and other planets, because we could send one of these there. It could build a city for us, build all the infrastructure that we need. And then by the time that humans get there, it's all set up. It's all good to go, if that makes sense.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, this is a big problem, right? Is that one thing I certainly, and we've spoken about Elon Musk, one thing I do agree with him on definitely is that like the next step of kind of human, I don't know if it's evolution, but kind of exploration, is that there's no new worlds left to discover on Earth.
Yes,
and we're failing at saving our planet right now. So unless something drastically changes, it's going to kind of dry up or heat up or, whatever. So we've got to look to new worlds. So, but, they're hostile.
Yes.
Mars is not a nice place. If you go there right now, you get a pretty killer suntan. So the concept of being able to kind of send autonomous machines to go there, build something ready for that. And it's 9 months, right, for people to get to Mars.
Yeah, and you have to go at the right time of the year as well.
Yeah.
There's only a window where the planets are close enough. But that's what it would take currently. But
crazy. But like huge, and I do believe that has got to be the next step for us. So if that's an option, I think there's like the first question for me is like, do we even have the machines there in the first place that can do that? I don't know. I don't know too much about robotics, but theoretically that would solve an enormous part of the problem, which is that whoever is the first colonizers on Mars, their kind of job is to set up base camp, right?
Sure,
which is a challenge,
Yeah.
like for other people to come.
It's like the most interesting thing to me, space,
Yeah.
because it's like it is like the final frontier. Like everything's blockchain, AI. It gets me very, very excited. But space is just like it's just beyond everything else.
I don't know if you saw, wasn't there a breakthrough? And I never remember which way around it is. There was a breakthrough recently, wasn't there, on nuclear fusion?
There's, so many. Yeah. I mean, it's such an interesting technology, which scares people because they hear the word nuclear. But in reality, the potential that tech has, it just blows everything else away.
Well, that's our limit. As far as I understand, space and that kind of final frontier, a lot of the limitations that we've got right now are based on the engine types that we have.
Sure.
So all like sci-fi and space exploration kind of theory is, I think, based on either faster than light travel, or near faster than light travel, near light travel, light speed travel, which or a dramatic increase in engine output, which we don't have. Like we have rocket engines right now, which are fine for going to the moon and are fine just about to get to Mars in 9 months, which is theoretically possible. We're not done it yet, so we'll see how it goes. But we can't go much beyond because there's not much beyond. Like Mars is our closest planetary neighbor, and that's 9 months. Like I don't know off the top of my head what the further ones are. I know wasn't there was a European Space Agency mission to map the moons of, I can't remember which planet now.
Sure.
Which is looking for water,
of course.
Again with the same view, which is like, could it support life? So this is like a, in the space world, like life beyond Earth, I think is a critical question.
Would you go if you had a free ticket? If Elon said, Alfie, James, we're going to take you to Mars, and think about what that means, because you're not coming back. Like you're going to die there. You're probably going to be living in some kind of boring company tunnel that he's built underground, because you can't walk around. There's little rocks flying and they'll hit into you. You'll die there. It'll be miserable. Yeah. But
you'll be historic.
Your great grandchildren will learn about you at school.
It's a great question. Yeah. It's a great. I've thought about it before, actually.
I think I'd have to say yes. I don't think I could regret.
Would you say yes?
I think I'd have to. Yeah.
I've thought on it, and I think
you're gonna die anyway.
You're right. You are right. I actually think I would say no. I think I like taking risks. I would class myself as an entrepreneur. I've joined early stage startups my whole career. Yeah. But.
Yeah, but
with a big
that,
B.
That is like the ultimate.
Honestly, forgetting everything that I know, like it's not going to be a utopia.
No,
It's not the danger that scares me. Actually, thinking about it, it's more the fact that who could come with me. Like maybe if you could bring your whole family, that's a slightly different proposal at that point. Like maybe that's okay, but that's
you wouldn't be able to though at first.
Yeah, that's the issue, and that's where I struggle with it, and where I would say
you'd have to say goodbye to everybody that you've ever loved.
Right, which is probably why I would err on the side of no.
Yeah. I'm sure my wife is watching this going, what
the hell? Like, oh my God.
Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe not. But yeah. Anyway, thanks for coming on, James. It was really good to get your perspective, your insights into what's happening. Let's definitely do this again in a couple of months. We'll do a group session. And thank you to everybody for watching as well.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, thanks for watching this podcast. Make sure that you like, subscribe, follow, comment, etc., etc. And I'll see you in the next episode.
The Alfie Whattam Podcast.
Imagine if you were able to hire the next Elon Musk. Or if you got a job at Facebook, back when it was just a startup. Well, these people and these opportunities, they are still out there. and we have access to them. Access to all of them. At Alpha Technology, we specialise in software development recruitment across London and the UK. From React to Java to C# and more. We represent the best front-end, back-end, and full-stack engineers on the market. This includes top developers from Meta, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, and more. Our clients operate across AI, blockchain, VR, AR, fintech, edtech, health tech, and more. From startups to global enterprises and everything in between. But Alpha isn't just a recruitment agency. We are also a tech community. We host podcasts, run meetup events, and lead ED&I initiatives, supporting women in technology, BAME individuals, and the Tech for Good ecosystem. So, if you're a company looking to hire software engineers, or if you're a developer open to new opportunities yourself, then we are here to help. Alpha Technology. Recruiting for the future.